I've always been fascinated by the unexplored, the forbidden corners of the internet where no one dares venture. I was no hacker, just a curious mind-seeking adventure. They say the dark web is a cesspool of illegal activities, but to me, it was just an unknown landscape waiting to be uncovered. My friends would warn me, laugh, and call me reckless, but they didn't understand. The more they told me to stop, the deeper I plunged into its secrets. It all started when I stumbled upon a strange forum late one night. I had been browsing through various dark web directories for weeks, not looking for anything specific. I was there more for the thrill than anything else. But this forum was different. It had no title, no flashy graphics, just a plain blank page with a single link that read, "Seek the truth." The question seemed innocuous, but something about it sent chills down my spine. My hands hovered over the mouse as I debated whether to click. I wish I hadn't. After clicking the link, I was taken to a page with a simple interface, almost like a chat room from the early 2000s. It was sparsely populated, with a few users posting cryptic messages about hidden truths and the unseen rulers of the world. They talked about conspiracies I had heard before, global elites, shadow governments, but something about their tone was more resolute, like they knew something others didn't. Among the usual chatter, one message stood out to me: "The Illuminati is real, and they are watching." It felt like a joke, a reference to an overblown conspiracy theory, but curiosity got the better of me. I typed back, "Prove it." For a few moments, there was nothing. I stared at the blinking cursor, waiting for a response. Then, the screen flickered and a new message appeared. "Prove yourself worthy." Suddenly, my screen went black. My heart raced as I tapped the keyboard and clicked the mouse, but nothing worked. Just as I was about to force a shutdown, the screen lit up again with a video feed. It showed a dimly lit room, industrial in appearance, with concrete walls and no windows. At the center of the room stood a chair, and in the chair was a person bound and gagged, their face covered by a hood. I froze. The video was live. I could see the subtle twitching of the person's body, their chest heaving as they struggled to breathe. A deep voice broke the silence. You wanted proof. Now watch." My stomach turned. I didn't want to see what came next, but I couldn't look away. A figure dressed in a black robe entered the frame. They held a knife, its blade gleaming under the dim light. Without hesitation, they moved toward the bound figure, slowly lifting the hood from their head. The victim's eyes were wide with terror, their mouth gagged, unable to scream. "This is what happens to those who know too much," the voice said, cold and detached. Before I could process what was happening, the robed figure raised the knife and plunged it into the victim's chest. I gasped, instinctively pushing myself away from the screen, but the image was burned into my mind. The person convulsed, blood pooling around them, and then a stillness. My screen went black again. I sat in silence, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Was it real? Some part of me hoped it was a twisted prank, but it felt too real, too visceral. I was about to close my laptop and walk away when the screen flickered once more, this time displaying a new message. "You have seen too much. We are watching you now." The panic set in. My hands were shaking as I tried to close the browser, but nothing worked. I forced a shutdown and slammed the laptop shut. For a moment, the silence of my apartment felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. I could feel eyes on me, though I was alone. That night, I barely slept, plagued by nightmares of the robed figure and the person in the chair. Every creak, every sound outside my window made me jump. I tried to tell myself it was just a video, something staged, but deep down, I knew better. The next morning, I opened my laptop again, hesitant but needing to know if it was all just a bad dream. When I booted it up, the same chat room was still open, but now the interface had changed. There was a single message awaiting me: "You cannot escape us." I slammed the laptop shut again, but it was too late. My phone buzzed, and when I picked it up, there was a new text from an unknown number. "Watching you." I threw the phone across the room. My paranoia was growing. I checked the windows, made sure the door was locked, but nothing could shake the feeling that I was being watched. I spent the next few days in isolation, terrified of what might happen next. Every time I went online, I was greeted with strange messages, cryptic warnings, and more disturbing videos. They knew where I was, and they were making sure I knew it too. Then, one night, I received a final message. "You belong to us now." The lights in my apartment flickered, and a deep hum filled the air. The walls seemed to vibrate, and the temperature dropped rapidly. My breath fogged in front of me, and then I heard it, the sound of footsteps outside my door. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and stood by the door, my heart racing. The footsteps grew louder, slow and deliberate. Then came the knock, 3 sharp, precise knocks. I didn't answer. I couldn't move. The door handle turned slowly, but the lock held. The footsteps retreated, and the silence returned. I thought it was over until I received one last message on my phone. "You'll never know when we'll return." The Illuminati had found me, and now I was marked. Even though the messages stopped, the fear never left. I moved to a new city, changed my number, and tried to start over, but the paranoia followed me. Every shadow, every stranger's glance. Could they be watching? The dark web had revealed its deepest secret to me, but it came at a cost. I am always being watched, and I always will be. It all started with a message, one I didn't expect, one that still haunts me to this day. I've always been someone who pushed boundaries. For years I had navigated the darkest corners of the internet, the parts where most people wouldn't dare to tread. I'd been on forums where hackers traded secrets, watched illicit deals happen in real time, and seen things I wish I could forget. But none of it had prepared me for what I was about to uncover. The message was simple. Ask M to help me. It was sent from an anonymous account in a forum I'd frequented for months. At first, I thought it was a scam or some bait to pull me into a virus-ridden link. But something about the message felt off. There was no context, no follow-up, just that single plea for help. I decided to respond. "Who are you?" Almost immediately, I got a reply. "I don't have much time. They're coming. Please, help me." I stared at the screen, unsure of what to make of it. Who was this person? I had seen some bizarre things on the dark web, but this felt different. It felt real. My curiosity got the better of me. I asked again. "Who's coming? Where are you?" There was a long pause. I thought maybe they had gone, but then another message appeared. "It's not a place. It's mo everywhere. They watch. They always watch." I shivered. Something about the way the message was worded made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I had heard conspiracy theories about government surveillance, the Illuminati, secret societies controlling the world. But this person seemed genuinely terrified. I tried to shake it off. "What do you want me to do?" I typed, expecting them to ask for money or some impossible favor, but the reply came swiftly. "Find me before they do." That was it. No details, no further explanation, just that cryptic command. I was about to ask more when the screen went black. My heart skipped a beat. Had my laptop crashed? I pressed the power button, but nothing happened. Suddenly, the screen flickered back on, and I was staring at a live video feed. It was grainy and dark, the camera barely capturing the image of a small, cramped room. In the center of the frame was a person, shackled to a chair, their face hidden in shadows. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a joke. The voice returned, but this time it wasn't in a message. It was a low whisper coming from my speakers. "You have to find me." I leaned closer, squinting at the screen. The room was nondescript, with concrete walls and a single door behind the figure. There were no windows, no identifying features. But as I watched, I noticed something. Numbers etched into the wall behind the person. I grabbed my phone and quickly took a picture of the screen before it went black again. I tried to bring the video back up, but it was gone. The forum page I had been on had disappeared as if it had never existed. Frantically, I searched through my browser history, but every trace of that page had been erased. I stared at the photo on my phone, the only proof I had that it had ever happened. The numbers were faint, barely legible, but they were there. 46.0891, 6.6577 m. Coordinates. I hesitated. Was I really about to do this? My rational side screamed at me to stop, to leave this alone, but I couldn't shake the voice from the video. Whoever that was, they were in trouble. And somehow, I had been pulled into it. I plugged the coordinates into an online map, and my heart sank. They pointed to a remote area in the French Alps, far from any major cities. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't some kind of investigator, but I also couldn't just forget about it. For days, I obsessed over the video, the messages, and those coordinates. I reached out to a few of my friends who dabbled in hacking, but none of them could find any trace of the original forum or the messages I had received. It was like they had never existed. Then, about a week later, I received another message, this time through a secure email account I had set up for dark web browsing. The subject line was blank, but the body of the email read, "You're too late." Attached was a photo. The stories about the dark web are as numerous as they are terrifying. I've always been a skeptic. Sure, I had heard about the horrors lurking beneath the surface. Illegal markets, hitmen for hire, human trafficking. But I figured most of it was exaggerated or urban legend. That was until I stumbled onto something I wish I hadn't. What I found was not a mere website or illicit service. It was something darker, something evil. This is my story, and I hope by sharing it, I can warn others. It all started innocently enough. I was browsing the dark web late one night out of sheer boredom. I wasn't particularly tech-savvy, but I knew enough to get around using Tor and a VPN. My friends and I had dared each other to see who could find the weirdest thing online. And, as dumb as it sounds, I took the challenge seriously. After hours of clicking through mundane marketplaces and sketchy forums, I found a site that looked like an old broken wiki page. It had no title, just a string of random numbers and letters at the top. The page was poorly formatted, with blocks of text overlapping images and links leading nowhere. But one link caught my attention. It was written in bold red text at the bottom of the page. "The Devil's Code." I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked the link, and that's when things started to get weird. The page that loaded was different from anything I had seen before on the dark web. It was clean, well designed, and had a single line of text at the center of the screen. "Do you seek the truth?" Beneath the question were two buttons, "Inajan yes ho," and "No." I laughed. It was obviously a joke, but something about the page gave me chills. And maybe it was the simplicity of it, or the fact that my room had suddenly grown colder. I hovered my mouse over the Wasisung button and clicked. The screen went black for a few seconds before a video feed popped up. At first, it was just static and low humming, but slowly, the image came into focus. It showed a room, dark and empty, except for a single chair in the middle. My heart skipped a beat. I could hear faint breathing through my headphones, like someone was standing right behind me. The chair in the room was illuminated by a dim, flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and then I noticed the figure. At first, it was just a shadow, but as the camera zoomed in, I could see a person sitting in the chair. They were bound by their hands and feet, their heads slumped forward, completely still. The camera remained focused on this person for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. I wanted to close the browser, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. My gut told me something was very wrong. Suddenly, the person in the chair jolted upright, as if woken from a nightmare. They looked directly at the camera, their eyes wide with terror. Their mouth was gagged, but I could see them trying to scream. A distorted voice came through my headphones, low and gravelly. "You asked for the truth. Now you must pay the price." The lights in the video flickered, and the figure began thrashing in the chair, struggling against the restraints. The camera zoomed in closer, and I could see their face more clearly. It was a woman, her face pale and bruised, eyes pleading for help. I wanted to look away, to close the browser, but I was frozen. Then, the screen went black. For a moment, I thought the feed had ended, and I felt a wave of relief. But then, new text appeared on the screen. "The Devil's Code has been written." Below the text was a line of seemingly random symbols and numbers. I stared at it, confused. What did it mean? Was it a cipher? A hidden message? As I pondered over the string of characters, my laptop started to overheat, and the fans whirred loudly. I reached over to shut it down, but the screen flickered and displayed another line of text. "You can't run from this." Suddenly, my speakers emitted a high-pitched screech, and my laptop shut off completely. I sat there in silence, my heart racing. What the hell just happened? I forced myself to get up and leave my room. I needed a moment to breathe, to clear my head. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the video. Who was the woman in the chair? Was it real? What did the Devil's Code mean? I decided to dig deeper, even though every instinct told me not to. I visited forums and message boards on the dark web, asking questions about the page I had found. Most people either ignored me or responded with cryptic warnings, telling me to stay away. But one message stood out. It was from a user named Demon, who claimed to know about the Devil's Code. The message read, "You've seen it, haven't you? The code is not just a website. It's a contract. The moment you accessed it, you agreed to something you can't escape." I messaged him back, asking for more details, but he never responded. I was starting to feel like I had made a huge mistake. Every night I had nightmares about the woman in the chair, her terrified eyes locked onto mine. I started to feel like I was being watched. Whenever I was online, strange things would happen. My screen would flicker, my internet would cut out, and random windows would open on my computer without me touching anything. One night, while lying in bed, my phone buzzed. I groggily reached over to check it, assuming it was a notification from some app. But what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a text from an unknown number, and it read, "You can't hide from the truth." I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. How did they get my number? I hadn't shared any personal information online. I tried to convince myself it was just a prank, but the feeling of dread wouldn't go away. Over the next few days, the texts kept coming. Each one was more sinister than the last. I tried blocking the number, but every time I did, a new one would appear. They knew where I lived, they knew my schedule, and they even knew intimate details about my life, things I had never shared with anyone. I began to unravel. I stopped leaving my apartment, convinced that someone was watching me. I disconnected from the internet, hoping that would stop the messages, but they continued to flood my phone. Then, one night, I received the final text. "You have one last chance to embrace the truth. The devil's code has been written, and your time is running out." That night, I woke up to a loud bang coming from the hallway outside my apartment. My first instinct was to grab my phone and call the police. But when I looked at the screen, it was lit up with a new message. "We are here." The lights in my apartment flickered, and I heard slow, deliberate footsteps just outside my door. That was when I knew I had invited something into my life that I couldn't escape. The dark web wasn't just a cesspool of illegal activity. It was a gateway to something far more dangerous, something I couldn't outrun. The devil's code had been written, and my fate was sealed. I haven't slept in days. I don't know what will happen next, but I know one thing for sure. It's not over, and it's coming for me.